Welcome to another episode of True Crimes in Singapore, where we unravel the darkest secrets that no one talks about. Where beneath the spotless streets and polished skyline lurks a chilling reality that few dare to explore. This isn't the Singapore you see in glossy tourist brochures or media campaigns. This is the hidden Singapore, where horror crept behind HDB doors, where evil wore the mask of the ordinary, and where the nation's darkest secrets were buried in plain sight. Each episode, we uncover real cases, both infamous and forgotten. From ritualistic killings and serial murderers to vanished lives, unsolved mysteries, and cold-blooded betrayals. All told with unwavering respect for the victims, grounded in truth, and free from sensationalism. If you've ever thought Singapore was too safe for true crime, think again. So lock your doors, dim the lights, and step into the shadows with us as we expose the twisted truths behind the Lion City's pristine facade. This is True Crimes in Singapore. Today, we revisit one of the most disturbing cases in our nation's history. A tale of manipulation, madness, greed. A murder that shook Singapore to its core. In 2001, a seemingly ordinary family unraveled after a chance encounter of the husband with a group of youths. They became participants to a chilling crime, where one man's desperation and greed turned deadly. Anthony, a real estate agent in Singapore, was drowning in debts and a bitter divorce. Desperate for full ownership of his flat and custody of his 4-year-old daughter, he made a fateful choice. He decided that his wife must die. To carry out his nefarious plan, Anthony approached a group of 5 teenage boys outside a McDonald's at Pasir Ris Town. After engaging with them, he then made a proposal that would set a chain of events that would only end tragically. Initially, to the boys, it sounded like a sick joke. How much to murder someone? The boys threw out figures. One asked for $1 million, another said $100,000. Anthony agreed to the latter and then named his target, his wife. Most of the boys laughed it off. One boy, however, just 15 years old, known in court documents only as Z, accepted. Anthony soon began grooming Z. He invited him to his flat, practiced stabbing techniques using newspapers, showed photos of his wife and daughter, and treated him like a protege. When Gavin, Z's friend, came to know of the plan to kill Anthony's wife, he begged him to back out of the crazy scheme, but Z refused. Despite having qualms and wanting to back out initially, Z eventually agreed and carried out 2 aborted attempts on May 10th and 11th. Equipped with a helmet and steak knife, he stalked the 4th floor of Anthony's wife's block. In one of the attempts, he froze when he saw the couple's little girl playing outside. Z wanted to back out completely after the 2 aborted attempts, but Anthony's constant threats against Z and his family kept him compliant. On May 13th, Anthony even gave Z a samurai sword as a gift, but also ensured he stayed on track by warning him to kill or be killed. On the night of May 15th, Anthony orchestrated the final plan. He arranged to meet his wife at the playground below her mother's flat under the pretext of signing some paperwork for their mortgage. When she went upstairs to retrieve a pen from her mother's flat, Z watched from below and followed her upstairs. As she exited the lift, Z pounced on her from behind, covered her mouth with a red cloth, and stabbed her in the neck and chest. Injured and staggering, she collapsed at her mother's door, crying for help before slipping into unconsciousness. Anthony soon joined his daughter at her grandmother's flat, feigning shock and calling out his wife's name. His wife's family fought to stem the bleeding, only to discover that she also had a 3rd stab wound in her back. Meanwhile, Z had fled to a bus stop, flagged a taxi, and dumped the weapon into the sea as planned. Anthony's wife was rushed to the hospital, but tragically, just before midnight, she succumbed to her wounds. The autopsy confirmed that her death was caused by acute hemorrhage from wounds deep in her heart and lung. Meanwhile, her husband, Anthony, stood at the bedside, pretending to be distraught and grief-stricken. However, his grand scheme went awry and did not go as planned. Anthony soon became the prime suspect. Police had found one clue at the crime scene, a torn newspaper page which had been used by Z to wrap the knife. A copy of the newspaper, with the missing corresponding page, was found in Anthony's home. The police also became more suspicious of him because instead of cooperating with them as expected, Anthony reacted badly to questioning by being hostile and refusing to point investigators to other suspects. At the funeral, he put on a performance of a man in sorrow, calling himself a devil and his wife an angel. It wasn't convincing enough. Within days, Gavin reported Anthony's manipulation to the authorities and Z confessed. Z, riddled with guilt, told police he had acted under Anthony's orders. Anthony was soon arrested and charged with abetting murder, a capital offense in Singapore. Z was charged too, but spared the gallows because he was under 18. In the trial, which started in November 2001, prosecutors presented damning evidence, testimonies from the boys, and deleted emails on Anthony's computer where he had negotiated payment for the contract. The final nail on his coffin was the torn newspaper used to wrap the knife recovered at the crime scene that matched to his copy he had at home. Anthony's defense claimed it was all a bluff. But the judge saw through it, calling the murder plot not a joke but a serious death match, where Anthony moved the pawns and directed the fall of his queen. After a lengthy trial, Anthony was convicted and sentenced to death. His subsequent appeal in March 2002 failed. His appeal to the president for clemency was also denied. On December 13, 2002, Anthony was hanged at Changi Prison at dawn. Z, on the other hand, because of his status as a minor, escaped the gallows and remained in detention. He transformed himself by pursuing his studies, earning his O-levels, A-levels, and even a university degree while in prison. After nearly 17 years, on November 2, 2018, his appeal for clemency was approved by the president, and Z was finally released. His remorse remains evident even to this day. He confessed to the crime and reiterated that he wished he had never met Anthony. This tragic case reminds us how greed and vulnerability can entwine. A man's financial pressure and greed twisted him into orchestrating his wife's murder. A child's admiration and gullibility to manipulation had turned him into a weapon. It also raises questions. When authority is unchecked and desperation mounts, how far can people fall? Thank you for joining me on this episode where another dark secret of Singapore is revealed. If you found this story tragic, informative, and thought-provoking, please leave a like, subscribe, and ring the bell. It will be very much appreciated. I'm your host for True Crimes in Singapore. Do keep a lookout for the next episode as we reveal yet another dark secret lurking beneath where you least expect it. Until next time, stay aware, stay safe.